And guys, in this next news story, a woman who was a teenager at the time when she ran a CountyLine drug operation and exploited other youngsters into becoming street dealers for her has been jailed for 5 years. Saleha Saed, who's 21, ran the so-called Fat Boy line, which bought 3 kilos of heroin and crack from London to Great Yarmouth. Norwich Crown Court heard she was aged just 18 when she controlled other gang members, including Nathan Saed and Tremayne Ndikumana. She was actually in a relationship with Nathan Saed at the time. She booked hotel rooms from where the drugs were prepared and also recruited youngers to do a bidding for her. Both teenagers, Ndikumana had been the holder of the phone line under construction, while Saed had operated as a babysitter for the drugs, packing them and looking after them. The prosecutor said she had taken over the running of the line from another former boyfriend who was much older than her. She took everything from him. Text messages from phones seized during a police operation to disrupt the line that saw her arrested in June 2022 showed she had become central to its operation and was the person in charge. In one message to her ex-partner, she had boasted to him, "You're deluding yourself if you think that line is yours. I've taken it. It is truly mine." Other messages including disagreements over how lower members of the operation were selling drugs and criticism of the prices being charged by a street seller known by the nickname Tiny. Police also discovered messages linking her to human trafficking, with one talking about bringing one of them youngers through. She'd expected to make a considerable amount of money from the operation of the line, the court heard, going into the hundreds of thousands. Said, who was originally from London, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs between July 2021 and June 2022, and she also admitted an offence of arranging or facilitating the travel of another person with a view to exploitation. Sentencing her to 5 years imprisonment to be served in a young offenders institution. As she was aged under 20 at the time, the judge said it had been a large-scale drugs conspiracy. He said she had also arranged and facilitated the travel of teenagers who were exploited and forced to sell drugs. However, he said she had not been instrumental in setting up the line. He said she actually jacked the line from someone else. He said her role was significant and she had managed others, but she had been a trusted lieutenant rather than establishing the line. In mitigation, the defence said it is not acceptable that she was at the top of the enterprise, albeit she was at an elevated level. Messages, including one, stated that Tiny used to do mad numbers, but that this had dropped off since she took over the line, suggesting others were still involved in the running of the operation. She had been exploited herself as only months older than the people she was said to have trafficked into exploitation. He said common sense tells you that she did not set up this line, she stepped into it and was groomed into doing so. So, one of the other lads, Ndikumana, had early been sentenced to 4 years detention in a young offenders institution, and Nathan Saed was jailed for 3 years and 4 months. The court heard that Ndikumana had been recruited through peer pressure and had a chaotic lifestyle as a care leaver, and Saed got involved in dealing through the possibility of making money as well as naivety, and had been acting under the direction of his ex-girlfriend, Saed. Absolute madness, guys. You got women jacking next man's lines and taking over CountyLine's operations. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And guys, in this next news story, officers from Operation Venice have brought 2 men to justice following a string of violent watch robberies in central London. Nizar Saed, 22, was sentenced at Wood Green Crown Court for 40 months imprisonment, and his pal Shaquille Allen received 40 months imprisonment at the same court. He was also given an extra 54 months imprisonment for a separate offence. Both men pleaded guilty to 2 counts of robbery and 3 counts of attempted robbery at an earlier hearing. So all the incidents took place on the 1st of October 2022 in the W1 postcode area. So at 8:10 on Audley Street, there was an attempted robbery. At 8:22 there was another attempted watch robbery, and then 8:45 there was attempted watch robbery, and then 9:30 there was a man robbed of his Rolex watch, no injuries, and then at around 9:45 there was another man robbed of his Rolex watch with a minor hand injury. So Saed and Allen used a moped to target members of the public for their expensive watches. In the first incident in Audley Street, a man was approached by the two men on a moped. The victim was knocked to the ground and threatened him with a machete in an attempt to steal his watch. A member of staff from a nearby pub intervened and the two men fled on the moped. The man who was attacked was not injured but left before police arrived. In fact, this victim was never traced, but four of the victims came forward and reported being robbed or being subjected to an attempted robbery. An investigation was launched by detectives from Operation Venice, the Met specialist team that targets moped-enabled crime. They spent hours looking at CCTV to trace the suspects and followed the suspects' route through the streets of London. The CCTV footage shows the two suspects on the moped using machetes as well as punching, kicking, and running over their victims in a 2-hour crime spree. Finally, they were able to get CCTV that showed the robbers taking off their crash helmets, meaning officers were able to identify them. They were also able to follow the CCTV to locate the bike the pair had used, and when recovered, they found DNA that linked the bike to Saed and Alan. Saed was arrested and charged to appear at Highbury Corner Magistrates Court on the 16th of November, and Alan was charged to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on the 21st of April. Detective Constable Mike Bagnall from Operation Venice said, "These were violent attacks on innocent people in the middle of the street in central London. It was just fortunate that no one was seriously injured during these reckless offences. The investigation was thorough and detailed, and we were able to trace Saed and Alan and build an overwhelming case against these Rolex rippers. They were violent robberies, and I'm glad our determination to find those responsible enabled us to take both these dangerous men off our streets." And in this next news story, two men are facing life sentences for the murder of a teenager who was stabbed 8 times with a Rambo knife. Omari Lauder and Omfo Obi were found guilty of killing 16-year-old Tyrell Marshall Williams on Friday, May the 17th. He was repeatedly knifed at a flat in the Merry Hill area of Wolverhampton on September the 18th last year. The victim, who was already there with a friend, was left to die, while Lauder, who was also injured in the stabbing on the afternoon that day. Paramedics raced to the scene and gave Tyrell CPR, but nothing could be done to save him. West Midlands police obtained CCTV footage which showed Lauder and Obi in the area where the murder had taken place. They were seen dumping clothes, drugs, and a mobile phone in a nearby field, and the items were recovered by police alongside a blood-stained Rambo knife. The men were picked up by a taxi after the murder, and CCTV showed Lauder being dropped off at his home. When officers raided the address, they found a trail of blood leading to the front door, and inside were signs that Lauder had tried to administer first aid to himself. Detective Inspector Dan Jarrett led the investigation that these men went to the address armed with a large knife and carried out a ferocious attack on Tyrell. He was stabbed multiple times and left to die in the flat. No sentence will bring Tyrell back, but I hope his family can now begin to rebuild the next part of their lives. I just want to say rest in peace to the victim, and my condolences go out to your family. Here's a number of news stories coming out from the streets of the UK. It's your boy GT. Keep it locked, keep it real.